podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Coming up, we've got all the news and views from Manchester City's week. It's your club, and this is your show.
Well, after months on end of wondering where this season was going, we're now in full-blown springtime anxiety mode. It's all hands to the pump in the Premier League title race, a race that many fans didn't expect City to be in at this stage, and now a fourth consecutive FA Cup final on the horizon, the first time that's ever happened as well. Getting to the final means that Pep Guardiola will now become City's longest-serving manager of all time, passing the total number of games managed by Les McDowall in the 50s and 60s. Assuming he finishes the season, of course. We'll hear from the football historian Dr. Gary James a bit later on, who can tell us more about the man that Guardiola will overtake. It's now Everton on Monday night as well, as City look to close the gap on Arsenal at the top of the table. We'll hear from Matt Jones from the Blue Room, who can tell us all about their season to this point. We did ask if we could do this week's episode on Wednesday to give the guests plenty of rest before the weekend, but we were told that Thursday was the only option. Good news though, because we've been able to rotate the squad a little bit. I'm David Mooney, with me is City fan Chris Higginbottom.
Hello.
And from Football 365, Sarah Winterburn.
Hello, David.
Hello. Good to have you both back. Chris, it is a bit of a sentimental start to the show this week. Normally I do something sillier, but John Stones has announced that he's leaving City at the end of the season, and I just thought we'd do something really earnest for once. So, favourite John Stones memories?
Just any time he's fit, really. I mean... But, I mean, probably the most kind of standout, pivotal moment was that goal line clearance against Liverpool, where just the merest smidge of ball was still on the line. And probably the other highlight is that dance that he did in the dressing room.
Was that the one where that I think they just won the FA Cup at Wembley, was it? And I think it's the 2019 kit, isn't it? So it must be the domestic treble year. And is that where they threw something invisible up into the air, and he waits for it to come down? Yeah.
Very slick. What a mover.
Yeah, Sarah, is there anything?
He was out for 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, of course. Sarah, is there anything that kind of transcends like the City folklore side of John Stones here for you, for things that have come out like have burst the ball? Because obviously Chris mentioned the goal line clearance. Like moments like that just kind of stand out, or is it essentially the Champions League final?
I think there is that. Unfortunately, I think outside of City, people just, Chris made the joke straight away, isn't it? It's the injuries, and that, unfortunately, that really has overshadowed what has been. I'm a massive John Stones fan. I love watching him. Loved watching him play for England. I think he made England a much better side. It's been a little bit sad watching the last couple of years, hasn't it? Just kind of that. Not quite being fit enough, not quite. But then when he does play, you're kind of going, oh, God, yeah, he's really good, isn't he? And so there's all that. But yeah, probably the goal line clearance would be the one thing I would have picked out. I think that's the one. I think we've transcended the point where you think of John Stones, you think of him in that City shirt. And I think from a sort of neutral's point of view, I think that's the moment. He's not Everton's John Stones, he's not England's John Stones, he's Man City's John Stones, and that's a big thing, I think.
Yeah, the goal line clearance, Higgy. I don't know if you remember this. He actually causes the problem himself. So at least he's been there to sort it out.
Well, some of the greatest achievements are about taking responsibility, aren't they, for your own for your own errors. Clear up your own messes. And I suppose it is a bit daft that I didn't mention the Champions League final, because that is obviously a huge standout for him as well. But that's what came to mind, the goal line clearance and the dance. Yeah.
Well, get in touch with your John Stones favourite memories. We will do a lot more on this towards the end of the season. The usual ways to get in touch, at bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky. Contact at bluemoonpodcast.com is the email address as well. But for now, let's have a look at the FA Cup semi-final that's just gone, because Sarah, I mean, a lot of people would quite easily look at this game and go, City against a Championship side, it should be quite an easy game. I think all of us with a blue persuasion kind of thought he's gonna rotate the team here, and he did rotate the team. So with all that in mind, how do you think the performance was?
I think anyone who thought that was going to be a gimme didn't watch Southampton beat Arsenal, and I think that performance really showed you that they can hurt teams. They really hurt Arsenal, and particularly down the wings. And as soon as you saw that City side, you thought, not sure about this. I never expected that to be a walk in the park at all. As soon as it got back to 1-1, I thought that's absolutely nailed on. They're going to go on and win it. But I think initially, and that first sort of hour did sort of reflect that, didn't it? Shock horror, players who don't normally play together don't look that cohesive. I mean, no one's ever surprised by that, or should ever be surprised by that. As many times as you want to talk about how much this team's worth and how much this team was bought for, which is all an absolute load of bollocks, because that group of players just hasn't played together before. So it didn't look cohesive. There were certain players, obviously, you worried for Phil Foden, and yes, you're right to worry because he did look poor. Very, very disappointed with Omar Marmoush. I mean, I thought I was a massive fan of his when he joined City, and it really looks like he's not quite there, doesn't it? And maybe that is just a lack of games. I don't know, but there was some surprisingly good performances there. I thought I'd entirely forgotten that Kovacic existed, so it was nice to see that he existed and
as
B
well.
was actually decent.
But it's also the hair as well. Where did that come from?
Well, that's what he's been doing. Everybody's been wondering what he's been doing. That's what he's been doing. He's been in Turkey.
Higgy, when the team sheet came out, did you wonder if maybe Guardiola could have balanced the Burnley game and the Southampton game a little differently? Because obviously Burnley went pretty much with the same team that played against Arsenal, and it turned out that effectively all of that team was just knackered for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it is easy to say that with hindsight, isn't it? But it's kind of typical Pep. You go into the game knowing that, or expecting him to kind of heavily rotate, and knowing that it is a necessity, and you're kind of comfortable with that. And then when you look at the team sheet, you're like, bloody hell, that much? And then during the game, even though you've anticipated it and kind of, you're kind of at peace with it, you're absolutely cursing it throughout the game because of the lack of cohesion and the lack of rhythm, which is inevitable. And then afterwards, you scrape through and you're like, yeah, that's fine. He knew what he was doing. He's
absolutely smashed it.
Yeah. Well,
but then you think back to that Chelsea.
He's got the outcome he wanted. He's got 2 wins from this week.
Exactly,
so,
yeah. And also, it's a good kind of audition for those players who want to be involved in the running, when no doubt there will be a bit more rotation needed just through, knackeredness. There's bound to be a few injuries, possibly suspensions. It's going to be a pretty intense run of games. So it's a good kind of, audition for that, as I say. And also some players that perhaps won't be involved at all. It's a good shop window for them as well to say, look, I'm here. I can still play football. Come and get me. I'm not going to be at City for much longer. So, yeah, I mean, all round, in the end, it's been pretty much perfect because loads of players got a run out and we got through. So, happy days. But yeah, a bit tense at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't clinical, I think is fair to say, Sarah. But, I mean, ultimately, they kept Southampton in their own half, but for one attack. And if they're going to do that on their one attack, there's not really a lot you can do.
No, it's a completely unpreventable goal, isn't it? I mean, you'd be hard put, and certainly defensively, which is where you most worry about players coming in like that, and the least likely that you can just, your striker does badly, you bring Haaland on, don't you? Foden has a bad game, you bring Cherki on. You did worry a little bit at the back and thinking because if they aren't coherent, if they aren't working together, then the damage can be too much, can't it? But, nice to see Stone with the armband. Nathan Ake was good. It's funny that we've now got to the point where Nico O'Reilly is one of the ones being rested
yeah.
as well. He wouldn't have seen that coming a year ago, would he? But it all worked. Just as Chris said, absolutely smashed it in the end. Pep, he's he's got it exactly right. I'm sure he would have liked a little bit easier, but you're in a better place than you were 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago. Everything's coming up City at the moment.
Yeah. Sarah mentioned, Chris, the midfield. So Kovacic came in. Reinders came in for the first time in a long time. And Nico Gonzalez was there holding. How did you find the midfield? Because, I mean, we've already talked about how good Kovacic was. Reinders, maybe needed a performance to show what he could do. And Gonzalez just doesn't seem to get a look in, even when Rodri's not available at the minute.
I mean, Gonzalez I thought was great. I think there's always a bit of noise about him not doing enough, but I think again I've said this time and again on this podcast, we're very reactionary. We don't give people a fair crack of the whip a lot of the time. We expect it to hit the ground running. And I think Gonzalez has been playing a lot better than he's been given credit for when he has come in. I thought he did so again. I mean, apart from the goal, I thought he was good. The goal was fantastic. So I think the noise around him needs to just, people need to back off. I think he's doing absolutely fine. Reinders, I thought he was, as always, he seems okay, but not quite there. I think he lacks that bit of pace to get him into situations and out of situations sometimes, where if he was just had a bit more zip about him, I just think he'd be, a few marks out of 10 better in each game. It's just, that's what he seems to lack for me. He seems to move into good areas to get into good positions, and then he never seems to be quite able to capitalise on the situations he kind of finds himself in. It
says a lot, doesn't it, that you don't really remember him being involved in the game until he tries an overhead kick?
Yeah. I mean, if that had gone in, then I think I'd be probably giving a slightly different review. But, I mean, I'm not even sure what his best position is, really. He doesn't seem quick enough to be like a goal-scoring midfielder. He links play well, but he's not quite good enough defensively to sit. I don't think he's going to stick around.
What did you make of Nico Gonzalez, Sarah? Because, as we said before, Rodri was unavailable for a good part of the season, and he came in, did a really good job, and then as soon as Rodri was available again, Gonzalez basically disappeared off the face of the earth until this week. So how did he do overall?
I thought he did pretty well. I mean, I'm probably one of those who kind of looks at him and thinks 7 out of 10, which is not the worst thing in the world, but I'm very rarely blown away by him, and I think maybe that's one of the sort of side effects of playing in that position. I think more worryingly for him, I suppose, everyone expected Roger to come back in when he was fit. I think more worryingly for Nico is, O'Reilly's quite often moved into that position instead of him, so he's not even really the second choice in that position quite often. And that's quite worrying when he wasn't cheap, was he? And he's a more than decent player. The Rangers thing is bizarre. It seems a long time since that Wolves game, doesn't it, when everyone was saying, oh my God, this guy is phenomenal. Turns out Wolves were just absolutely shit. But...
Yeah, it's looking worse and worse as the weeks go by, that debut, hasn't it? It's as the season's gone on. Although he had a good December.
Like, God, this is the signing of the season. Look, he's amazing. It's phenomenal. Look at him. He's like, forget about David Silva. We've got this new guy. And then it's like, oh no, turns out absolutely. And quite bizarre, because there's already talk of him leaving this summer. And I think, for someone to sort of arrive, look like a success and fail so quickly with such a quick cycle is really unusual, but particularly for City.
What do you make of Kovacic, Higgy? Because a hair aside, it's his first start since last May, and I thought, for someone who's not played much football at all since then, he looked like he'd not really been away.
I thought he did well, yeah. I mean, he's known for his ball carrying, and he did that pretty well at times, especially for somebody who's not been involved too much. And he's, less aerodynamic than he used to be, so you got to take that into account.
Because of the hair, yeah?
Yeah,
because of the hair, yeah.
Less drag he used to have, but now he's it's flowing behind him and not holding him back too much.
The image I couldn't get out of my head. That episode of The Simpsons where Homer gets hair and he's running through Springfield early in the morning with it flowing behind him? That's just all I saw when Kovacic was carrying the ball up the middle.
No, but he carried the ball well, didn't he? I thought he was impressive. Whether he'll stay, I don't know. I don't know whether Timotei going to come in with an offer, but he's done himself, no harm in that performance, whether he wants to stay or not. So if we can rely on him in the running, then power to him, because he might be very useful.
Yeah, let's move a bit further forward. And Sarah, you mentioned Phil Foden before. He's having a bad time at the minute. He looks like he was through. He talked quite openly at the back end of last season about things away from football that were troubling him. He looked a lot sharper and a lot brighter in the autumn time and heading into the winter time. But now, we're 3 or 4 months on from then, and he just can't seem to get going. He's probably going to have the summer off. Is that going to be a good thing for him?
Oh God, I don't know. Different characters need different things, don't they? You know, some people do need that little break, and others would just like to keep going. I think it's tricky when you're an attacking player and you're not playing much. I think it's that pressure, isn't it? Every time you come on the pitch, you can't. You know, it's not like coming in as Nico Gonzalez and you produce an okay performance, don't make any errors. You've probably done all right. If you're Phil Foden, you've got to do something, haven't you? And unfortunately, that pressure of having to do something, if you're a winger or an attacking midfielder or even a striker, I think it's really difficult to push your way back in, especially when he's looking at his competition and looking at how well Ryan Cherky's playing and looking how, you know, once again, Bernardo Silva's defying his age. And, you know, who knows what's going on under the bonnet. I think it's quite sad because obviously the form of a couple of years ago lost that. And then, it, like you say, it almost felt like it came back again. And he got his little redemption arc, didn't he? And sort of talking about how, you know, he had troubles and he had to talk to people and it was all in his head and da-da-da-da. And it's like, oh yeah, now I'm back. And then you kind of look at it and go, you weren't back, were you? You know, there's something not quite there. And it's really telling that for the very first time, we're really seeing sort of, oh, could he actually leave City? And would actually leaving City be good for him? And I think there is a question probably further down the line for him and for the club and for fans as well as to actually, you know, is City not the right place for him at the moment? I mean, we'll talk about that probably later in the year and see if he bounces back again. But it's right that things just aren't falling, are they? There's just a little bit of, you know, 10% that's missing. And if you Phil Foden, that 10% is absolutely vital.
And it's not for the want of trying either, Chris. You can see in his performances that he's really trying to make things happen, and it just doesn't really seem to click. And then you look at this week; he's put that video on Instagram of him training while I assume he's overseas. Look at me assuming that he's overseas because he's got his shirt off in the video, and therefore it must be warm. And it's obviously not the UK. Yeah, it might have been what Stockport's been like this week because it's been brighter than it has been all year. But like he's posting things like that, and like with coming off the pitch at the weekend with John Stones giving him the little sort of keep your head up sort of thing. Like it doesn't feel great at the minute, does it?
No, I don't know we don't know what's going on in the background. I mean, Sarah was saying before about, you know, well, you and Sarah were discussing whether he's in the right place at City, whether it'd be good for him to have the summer off. I mean, if he does get picked for England and in the games that he plays gets into good positions and nobody gives him the ball, that's no good because that seems to happen a lot. I don't think I'm just being biased, but it does seem to happen. But if he plays badly for England, then that's going to make things even worse. I think a summer off is better than going on an iffy journey with England. Pep was at Stockport the other night. Are we to read anything into that? I'm joking, obviously, slightly. I think I'm joking. But I don't know.
If you keep calling me the Stockport Iniesta, I'm just going to go.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just made that kind of connection in his head, and he's thought he's going for it. But I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think we've just got to keep faith with him. If he wants to stay at City, then let him stay and fight his way back in. But yeah, the longer it goes on, the more questions are going to be asked, and I suppose it can't go on forever, can it?
We're safe with the England thing. There's absolutely no way he's going to the World Cup. I mean, Thomas Tuchel was not a fan even before this kind of real downturn in form. And it's fair to say Foden for England's never quite worked. Now, whether you say that's him not getting the ball, playing in the wrong position or whatever, it's never quite clicked. Some players are great for club, not for country, other way around. You know, not everyone can be a Darius Vassell and turn it on for England and, you know, look.
I will not hear a bad word.
At the level.
I will not hear a bad word said about Darius Vassell on this podcast.
Against Villa and for England, he was decent, wasn't he? But the thing is, with that last game where Tuchel said that he was great in camp and then not on the pitch, I watched the England game that he made those comments after, and I thought he did all right. Like I didn't see any real problem, but I suppose with Foden, it's you want goals and assists, don't you? And if that's not happening, then he's not giving enough elsewhere because that's his game. So if you're not producing that, you're not producing. You're not giving what he wants.
Ad-free episodes are available on Patreon. Sign up at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
Sarah, I want to talk about Omar Marmoush as well because I think the jury's been out with him at City for quite a while now. And there's kind of two factors to this. The first one is that Guardiola hasn't really picked him a lot this season when there's been opportunity to at times as well. And like aside from the spell deputising for Haaland at the back end of last season when he was brought in to kind of do a job, he looks like he struggled a bit. How do you feel he's doing at City?
I think at back end of last season, I mean, he had that little scoring run, didn't he? And he looked really good. And I was sort of saying, oh God, if he has when he has a pre-season, gets the summer off, has a pre-season, this guy could be, and I was citing him. I did back City to win the title before the start of the season, one of the few that did. And I actually mentioned about Marmoush after a summer of rest, after a pre-season, and yet he really hasn't. I mean, whether it's like, a fool's errand trying to be back up to Haaland is one matter, isn't it? Who is going to thrive in that role? But then, he could play across that front three, and never really. Again, is it Cherky coming in, and then he feels like he's lost his time, he's lost his space. I don't know. It's another funny one, isn't it? There's been a few little missteps in the transfer market, whether it's a misstep in the transfer market or players not quite sort of getting up to speed with Pep's tactics. I don't know. We'll never know. But I'm filing massively under disappointment. Really underwhelming. And again on Saturday, whether it's the Phil Foden thing of trying to do something. I don't think there's a lack of effort, but there's certainly a lack of something sort of, golden moment, a kind of, inspiration rather than perspiration.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Chris? Not much game time and ring rust around there, or just not at the level that City need? Because, I mean, frankly, he loves an offside, doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe he's just been offside a lot in training, and that's why Pep's not picked him. I wouldn't be surprised. But there's a player there. He does some amazingly positive things. He shows real talent. Some of the goals he scores are fantastic. Yes, he is offside a lot, but I think anyone compared to Haaland, I think he's probably offside like a normal amount. But Haaland is never offside, so you just think like, this guy's offside like twice a game sometimes. What's going on? It's rubbish. But
I think there's also a thing there, though, where the other players are used to playing with Haaland so much that the balls that you play, for Haaland, and Haaland is so quick that he's onside for it. He's probably pushing that bit because he thinks the only way I'm getting there is by sort of really pushing that line. So I think there is, it's a bit of a, who wants to be Haaland's backup? Who wants to be the guy who comes in and does that job?
It might be, again, down to cohesion and rhythm, though. When, if you're not playing with these players a lot, because Haaland always is, then it's hard to kind of make those relationships. And people know when you're going to run, where you're going to run, and you know when to anticipate the pass. And without regular game time amongst those colleagues, it's harder to forge those bonds, isn't it? But I don't know, that role, the kind of understudy to Haaland, it's like becoming defined by that kind of bit part. Inevitably, that's what happens. And if you,
it's a bit like a second keeper, though, isn't it? If you're good enough to be the deputy, you're probably good enough to be a number one elsewhere. It's like Julian Alvarez was good enough, was really good, but obviously City can't just keep him. No,
and he's gone on and been absolutely fantastic. I don't think Marmoush is quite at the level of Alvarez, but he's certainly good enough to lead the line for a top club. It's just unfortunate that when you do come into City, you've got to be aware that is kind of inevitable. If Haaland's fit, then you're not going to play anywhere near as much as him.
I almost think that City need for that position not go for the a young player who's doing well in Europe, but actually just someone like an Ollie Watkins or something who might just think, oh, it's go and play in the Champions League, go and win some stuff. Back end of your career, almost like your third choice keeper, and kind of someone who scores Premier League goals and probably isn't going to be massively bothered not to play because you get to play at City, you get to win trophies. It's got to be more fun than sort of playing at Villa or Brentford or something. I think those are the kind of players they should probably go for. Just someone who's happy to play second fiddle, but who looks a part when he is in.
It's a hard balance to strike, isn't it? I mean, for instance, that example of Ollie Watkins, he's wanting to get in the England team. If he was playing the same as Marmoush, he'd be knocking on the door, whinging like nobody's business, wouldn't he? I know that's just like an example, but yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. I think that we do it quite well, really, because he is very good, and we did brilliantly getting Alvarez and keeping hold of him for that length of time. It's not an easy position to fill, is it? So
the
I think
Scott
we've done all
Carson
right
of centre forwards. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, before we move on, a little bit of exciting news. You could win a pair of tickets to the upcoming City versus Brentford game on Saturday the 9th of May. Kickoff is 5:30pm at the Etihad, so please make sure that you're able to get there before entering the competition. We wouldn't want the tickets to go to waste. To enter, just simply send your name and phone number to contact@bluemoonpodcast.com. That's contact@bluemoonpodcast.com, and you need to do it before 11pm on Tuesday the 5th of May UK time. That's your name and phone number to contact@bluemoonpodcast.com before 11pm on Tuesday the 5th of May. A winner will be contacted on Wednesday the 6th of May. Please be aware though that we'll need some extra details for compliance from the winner about themselves and the guest that they'll be bringing, including job titles and a place of work. So please only enter if you'll be comfortable with giving those details as well. A reminder, email your name and phone number to contact@bluemoonpodcast.com before 11pm on Tuesday the 5th of May, and you could win a pair of tickets to see City take on Brentford later in the season. Now then, assuming that he stays until the end of the season, Pep Guardiola will now become City's longest-serving manager by the number of games played. Getting to the FA Cup final means there's now 6 matches until the end of the season, which would take Guardiola to a grand total of 593. That's one more than Les McDowall. I've been speaking to the football historian Gary James about the man that Guardiola is on the verge of overtaking.
It's an incredible achievement, especially when you consider how many years it's taken, because it's less than Les McDowall. Les McDowall was manager for about 13 years, so Pep's still got some way to go, to sort of meet length, to match that sort of length of service. But that shows you that in an era when there's less league games per season than there were in McDowall's day, we've done exceptionally well in competitions in Europe, and so on. So I think it's incredible. And when you look back and you think back to those first few weeks of Pep's arrival, and even before he arrived, people were saying, he'll be here a year and then he's off. He'll be here 2 years. He never stays more than that. He never stays more than that. Well, he's been here longer than the others. He's just, it's just incredible.
When you talk about the time period there, Les McDowall manager for 13 years, all of the 1950s essentially, and some of the early 1960s. What gave McDowall such longevity at City? Why was he able to stay for so long?
Well, first of all, it was an era when managers tended to stay a longer time. Although we had a couple of managers who, lasted a couple of seasons, whatever. But in general, if you were a football manager, you'd be expected to be there for 4 years plus easily, right? And Les McDowall, within those first 4 or 5 years, he got City promoted for a start. And then he started to develop that team that went on to be such a power in the mid-50s. And although, in modern day eyes, we only won one major trophy during the 1950s, we got to 2 finals. We came 4th in the league. I think we came 5th as well. It was that in itself would have been regarded as being success. No team expected to win more than one trophy every few years, and there was City in the middle of all that. And to be frank, we were a bit unlucky. Well, we were very unlucky in 1955, but a bit unlucky. So McDowall had got that team. He'd got that mid-50s team, that exciting team, and they won the FA Cup in relative style, and the sort of Revy plan and everything that goes with that. But it's not an era when you fail to win a trophy and you're expected to resign or get sacked. It was a different sort of era, and I'm not, I don't want to go on and saying, it was better then or anything like that, because it wasn't in most ways. But it was an era where if you're a former player, as Les McDowall was, you're going to be given time. But it was gradual progression rather than win a trophy, win a trophy, win a trophy.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the Revy plan there. This is one of those kind of tactical tweaks that when you look at what Guardiola's done with the old false 9 system that we've become so used to at City, you can trace its origins back to not necessarily Les McDowall, but the Hungarian side that inspired him, sort of thing. So there's kind of like City roots in all of what Pep's doing here. What impact did the Revy plan have on English football?
Well, it's amazing, really, and I find it hard to accept in this day and age how our teams couldn't match it, couldn't do it, because basically it's a centre forward who's lying deep, it's sort of false number 9, right? And this was a time when, like you said, Hungary had sort of done this, and everybody was aware of that. But for some reason, most of English football didn't think, oh, we'll copy that or we'll be aware of that or whatever. But Les McDowall did. And Les McDowall looked at his tactic and thought, great, I've got the sort of players. And to be fair, he relied upon people like Fred Tilson, who were parts of his coaching staff, and Fred Tilson had been a great player in the 1930s. So it was more that it had been developed in the reserves first. But, it was this great tactical innovation. And when in an era where footballers were expected to play in their standard sort of positions, traditional formats for traditional formations and so on, it bewildered teams because they genuinely didn't know who to mark. And it's like, it sounds ridiculous now. If you 5 minutes into a game, surely you're going to work this out. And if not 5 minutes into a game, then the next week or the next week or the next week. But I suppose one of the things that didn't really happen in those days, you relied on scouts to watch games. So maybe some of those teams that played against City just weren't really aware until they actually what the plan involved until they actually played them. But yeah, it really did surprise football. And you can talk about, as people rightly do, and I know obviously we're City, so we perhaps shouldn't over promote this, but the Manchester United team of the mid to late 1950s was an absolutely incredible team, and it was. I don't want to say it wasn't. It was, but City with the Revy plan beat them time and time again. Right, so even this great Manchester United team that was winning the league and finding success couldn't really sort out the Revy plan. I mean, obviously there were some victories, but basically, one season we beat them 3 times by a score of something like 10-1 or something it was, or 10-2. So even the greatest teams, the Wolves team or the Manchester United team of that era, couldn't really compete with this Revy plan, and it's bizarre, really. And I think people wrongly assume Don Revy invented the plan. He didn't. He was just a player that it sort of centred around. But the key figures to it, really, I suppose Ken Barnes was crucial to it. But Les McDowall is one that let it run in the league and in the cup, and it was obvious in the cup because it's filmed and it's you can see it in action. But the reason we lost the 55 cup final was because we went down to 10 men fairly early on and couldn't put the plan in force. It just couldn't happen.
Yeah, there's a story that McDowall called the players into pre-season early to basically say, look, lads, this is what we're going to do this season, and it just makes me smile with this idea of all these players turning up and going, what on earth is this? Whereas now you've got a manager like Guardiola who says we're going to do this, and the players just go, yeah, all right, we'll do that.
But interesting, actually. If you think back, so when Guardiola first came, obviously we had the idea of playing out from the back, and Guardiola, whether it was Joe Hart or, to be fair, even Bravo couldn't really do what Pep wanted. But so the players couldn't do the plan that Guardiola wanted. But the same happened in the 50s with the Revy plan, that it was only when Les McDowall brought Ken Barnes from the reserve team into the first team that suddenly the plan worked. They tried it out before Ken Barnes and it failed. It was an embarrassment, and many journalists said, oh, this will never work. Same again years later.
Yeah. Now, obviously, in terms of period managed, as you say, Les McDowall was at City longer than Guardiola has been so far. How did it go for McDowall in later years? Because obviously Guardiola has reinvented his team time and time again. This season again, when it looked last season like things might start to go wrong, he's reinvented the team. They've won the League Cup. They're in an FA Cup final. They're in a title race. They are there, even if they don't go on to get the silverware at the end of the season. They are there or thereabouts. How was it for McDowall?
Not the same. I mean, he had to. The 1955-56 sort of team that had finished, won the FA Cup, finished 4th and 5th, it just aged. He didn't manage to replace those players in the way they wanted to. He tried different plans. Was another plan called the Marsden plan, and that failed. It was dropped. So he was looking for another tactical innovation, but the players were not there really. I mean, Bert Troutman saved City time and time again, which is when his reputation as a great goalkeeper really sort of came to a fore, if you like. Because instead of winning trophies, he was saving City, and he very much was saving City year after year. They signed Denis Law, which at the time he was an exciting young player. He's 20 when he arrived, 21. He had his 21st birthday at City. A very exciting player, hugely talented, and then they sold him a year later. And I don't think City were in debt. I don't think there was a major financial issue, because there wasn't. They were still popular, and we weren't spending vast amounts of money on the stadium or anything in the late 50s, early 60s. Not really. But they sold Denis Law, and after that, I don't really think Les McDowall. He just couldn't. He couldn't get the players he wanted. He couldn't make those players do what he wanted to do. He'd ran out of ideas, maybe, and ultimately we headed towards relegation, and McDowall had to move on, didn't he? It wasn't the same. So completely different to Pep, really, in that Pep's created. Well, this has got to be his third different team, really. Pep's reinvented. Because let's face it, only 5 years ago, everyone was saying, when City were sort of way off the pace, and then eventually came good. But when they were way off the pace, everyone's saying, well, he's got to create a new team, and basically he did. He created a new way of winning, and he's done that again this season. And yeah, even if we don't win the league or the FA Cup or whatever. We've won a trophy this year. It's a remarkable achievement.
Yeah. A quick word as well on Wilf Wild, because Les McDowall was at City for the most number of games up until Guardiola this season, but not the longest time. Wilf Wild was there about 14 years compared to 15 years compared to Les McDowall's 13. But could Wild have kind of eclipsed this level were it not for the war?
Yeah. I think he could have eclipsed the numbers, yeah, because if you think about 5 or 6 war seasons were missed, and City were still playing football, but we were not playing football in the league. It was a regional league that had been established. So, yeah, I suppose if you added all those up, Wilf Wild would have achieved more games, I would guess. But you don't know, do you? I mean, he could have been sacked because the war was on, so things could have gone differently. And Wilf Wild was a traditional office type of manager, a secretary manager, and Les McDowall was to some extent, although he had a bit more of a tactical brain, I would say, than Wilf Wild. But Wilf Wild was working in the offices at City in 1920, and then in the 30s he becomes the manager, the secretary manager as it was called then, and suddenly takes City to FA Cup final, then the year after wins the FA Cup, and then a couple of years after that he wins the league. So he became a very successful manager, but it was a different type of role. And I think with Wilf Wild, one of the things about him was that throughout history, up until this point, up until the 1930s, the football manager was also the secretary of the club. So for those who remember Bernard Alford, who for years was Manchester City's secretary, it'd be like Bernard Alford doing his job and picking the team. And that was the job. How they cope with that, I don't know. But Johnny Hart, who was a player in the 40s and the 50s, who played for both Les McDowall and Wilf Wild, actually, I interviewed him quite a bit. He passed away a few years back, but I interviewed him a while, many years ago now. And he said that he was sort of an office boy at the time. And Wilf Wild would quite often come, do the team talk, say, right, lads, I want you to do this. And then he'd go out and take one of those sort of tannoys, loud ailer sort of things, go over to where the popular side was, the Kippax as it became, and be basically telling fans to move over because it's going to be a big crowd today. We need to get more space on the terraces. Move over and sorting out match day logistical stuff as well. So Wilf Wild was an incredible man, an incredible manager for City. But can you imagine Pep coming coming into the ground and say, "Come on, the pies aren't working. We need hot pies, and the pie machine's not working properly, or get the crowd. The turnstiles at the North Stand are not working properly this year. We need to do something else." Well, it's just crazy, isn't it? But that's the 1930s for you, isn't it?
If you enjoy the show, please give it a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts.
That was Gary James speaking to me about Les McDowall. Sarah, be honest, 10 years in, you didn't expect it to reach this level of Guardiola dominance in England, did you? It was 3 years and done, wasn't it?
I don't think it's at this level of dominance. I don't think that's a surprise. It's this level of longevity, isn't it? Nobody saw that coming. I mean, I still remember we often cite the columns written by Stan Collymore at the time and Robbie Savage at the time. Stan Collymore was the one that was like, if he thinks he can turn up and win everything in this league, it's like, except he has a Brummie accent and obviously I don't. But there was a lot of talk of, he's just turning up, he'll do his 3 years, he'll get his money, he'll realise what real football is and all this business. It is extraordinary that he's stayed for that long. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I bet Pep Guardiola didn't see that coming. I'm sure if he was asked at the time, he would have said 3, 4, 5 years tops. There's something about City that's kept him there, isn't it? And what a wonderful gift. What an absolutely wonderful gift. Are you all just giving up when he goes?
I honestly, I was going to ask you this, Chris. Like, there is the real prospect that it could be the end of this season. There's that story is doing the rounds again recently. He's said a few times, I have a contract. Now, what he's not said in there is what the terms of the contract are. So if there's a break clause at the end of this season, he could end up leaving at the end of this season. So, like, are you prepared for when it happens? Like, are you kind of like, how are you feeling about it all? Like, he's obviously closer to the end than he is to doing 10 more years. So if it is this summer, if it's next summer, like, how are you feeling?
No, well, now you mention it, I think I need to make some kind of coping strategy. I've not got like an emotional plan.
Are we going to actually see you break down?
Well, possibly, yeah. It's going to be really tough, isn't it? There's City fans who've grown up like starting to watch City and all they've known is Pep Guardiola and winning stuff, which is, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but you need a bit of suffering like those of us who've been watching since the late 80s, early 90s.
I have a 21-year-old stepdaughter who's a massive City fan, and I think I'd have to really push her to work out for her to name who the previous manager was, to be honest. I think her entire football sporting life has been Pep, and utterly confused by losing a game. I mean...
well, for her, even before
that's not right, is it, Chris? That isn't
no,
right.
It's not, no. Where's the misery in that? Where's the joy of misery? But even before Pep, if you're talking about your 21-year-old there, I mean, before that, Pellegrini and Mancini were winning stuff. So, yeah, that's like living memory for her. But, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. Whoever follows in his footsteps, bloody hell, you won't want to follow that, would you? It's a tough ask.
You kind of want to hide into nothing, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost want a stooge to come in for that first bit because, you saw with Arsenal that they got in Emery, who, with hindsight, you're thinking, what a phenomenal appointment that was. But actually, it didn't work because you're following the great man. I mean, the least said about David Moyes, the better in that role. But, and Arne Slot to a certain extent, although he won the title, the fans really dislike him now really quickly. So you kind of, you almost want to just throw someone in for a year before you get to the real one.
Get the not being Pep roll out of the way.
Yeah, God,
I'll have a go at it. I'll have a go at it. I mean, I'll do a year. See, not win the title, get sacked at the end of it.
Can you imagine any manager they're going, yeah, I reckon I can improve on this. Yeah, right, mate.
Well, this is the other thing, isn't it, Chris? Like the impact that he's had. Me and you often play in the same game on a Monday evening. I'm passing it from the back as a goalkeeper, whereas I grew up going, I don't want this. Get rid of it. No, don't pass it back to me. And now here we are doing this at grassroots level. Like the impact he's had in England is phenomenal.
It has. It's gone across all tiers of football. I remember playing Sundays as well, and people were starting to pass it out from the back. It's like, why are we doing this? The pitches as well, never mind the standard. But
just thinking back to my Sunday League days of having, the dip that you get in the goal mouth that fills with water. Having one of them on a cold Sunday morning that had frozen over, and the ref just coming over and smashing it all up into sharp shards of ice and going, there you go, it's playable now.
Yeah. Days.
I have an 11-year-old who he played in a game the other day, and we literally arrived as the opposition were wheelbarrowing sand onto the pitch. Right, in the goal mouth, just a load of sand. Phenomenal work.
Excellent work. Yeah, Guardiola's never had to deal with that, has he? Yeah.
No, not till he goes to Stockport.
Well, no, we had a burning car on our pitch once.
A burning car?
Yeah. We had to move pitch. We didn't just.
I was going to say, did you wait for it to go out and move it, or did you just kind of play around it? I wasn't.
If we're swapping stories, I used to live in South Africa, and there was goats on the pitch once. So
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. What's the strangest thing you've ever found on a football pitch? Get in touch. contact@bluemoonpodcast.com. That's my local radio trading coming in there. Let's look ahead then to the game with Everton. And Higgy, Arsenal 3 points ahead, having played a game more. They could be 6 points ahead by the time City play Everton, having played 2 games more. Does any of this make a difference at this stage? Or is it just like pressure's on, win the game, move on to the next one?
Well, yeah, I mean, they could be in a much more negative position, couldn't they? Never mind winning their game, but
well, we know that Arsenal will be between 3 and 6 points ahead on Monday evening, don't we?
Well, yeah, there is that, yeah, but you've just got to focus on the next game as City, haven't you? I know that's really cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. To just get on with it. Everton, I don't know. I'm looking at their form. It's very much of a muchness, isn't it? I know you've put in the notes like, are they going to be kind of on the beach, but I don't think that really applies anymore at this level. I think everyone's going to be striving to not just match winning bonuses, but you've got to think of your professional future and I think Everton will be a really tough game, but I think we'll just try to edge it.
Yeah. Sarah, if Everton are not on the beach, they will at least be on the docks.
You say on the beach, if you look at the league table, they're very much in a race for European qualifications. So it's not a sense of it being over for them. There's about 3 points separates about 7 sides in that mid-table. And, right down to 8th could be Europe. So I think the thing is, we all instinctively think, Everton away is a hard game. City haven't lost to Everton in almost 10 years. And that wasn't, we instinctively think it sounds like a tough game. I really don't think it is. And I think the Arsenal Man City thing, the odd thing is, I think City will match whatever Arsenal do. I think the worry is if Arsenal draw, which I think they absolutely could do, because Fulham are a funny side, they can turn on something, and Fulham have a lot of players who have made real impact against Arsenal, Raul Jimenez being one. I think if they drop points, I think then that kind of changes the psychology, and then everyone will be thinking, City win on Monday. And I think that's when you kind of, it becomes trickier. I think as long as Arsenal win, City win. I think I think it's gonna work like that. And the thing about Everton is it's a David Moyes side. He doesn't like experimentation, so they've used the fewest amount of players in the league. Consequently, knackered. So that's they look tired. I was talking to an Everton fan yesterday, and they need new blood. They're absolutely knackered. They're an older side, again, a David Moyes trait. They've got a lot of older players, centre-half partnerships, older, Idris again in central midfield. They're all a bit tired. And I think that's going to play into City's hands on Monday night. I expect something quite simple, unless, like I say, Arsenal drop points and then the psychology comes into play, I think.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that Europe was going all the way down to 8th. I was fully assuming Everton had nothing to play for, so I wasn't appreciative of that. Cheers for pointing that
out. Sorry, is that to pile on the nerves a bit more now, Higgy? Is that,
a little bit,
is that what it's done?
Yeah, I wish you'd not mentioned it, to be honest.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, isn't it? While we're discussing the schedule, there's been a little bit of controversy this week. It's very, very confusing and, frankly, quite boring. So, to jazz it all up, let's play a bit of music while I explain what's happened. So, City put 5 proposals to the Premier League to avoid having to play 3 games in 7 days. They wanted to swap, so-called swap, the Bournemouth away and Palace at home games. Now, it's not really a swap because neither had been scheduled when this was requested. Had they swapped, it would mean that Palace had to go, though, on Tuesday the 19th of May. That's because the Europa League final is on Wednesday the 20th, and UEFA doesn't allow domestic games to clash with European games. But City are a bit unhappy about that because that can be changed in exceptional circumstances. Also, Arsenal played Wolves earlier in the season on a Champions League night. That was their game in hand from the League Cup final, brought forward by about a month. City's game couldn't come forward because of Palace's Conference League fixtures, so that had to go somewhere later in the schedule. Had City versus Palace gone on the final Tuesday, that's the 19th, there would have been another problem too. Palace versus Brentford has to go on Sunday the 17th on Monday the 18th of May after the FA Cup final. There can be no games before the FA Cup final on Friday the 15th or Saturday the 16th. That's because of an agreement between the FA and the Premier League. Bournemouth have no game that weekend, so they can freely play on Tuesday the 19th of May, while Palace can play in the penultimate midweek because they don't have any Conference League fixtures there. Realistically, the Palace game couldn't actually go in the final midweek, so that's why it's been decided this way round. City also asked if they could move the Bournemouth away game to the Thursday, that's the 21st of May, just before the end of the season, about 3 days before the final day. But that was also rejected by the Premier League, and we don't really know why. That reason hasn't come out. So it's been settled on Palace on Wednesday the 13th of May and Bournemouth on Tuesday the 19th of May, either side of the Cup final. City also argue that there is precedent to bring games forward and not push them back. That would mean playing Bournemouth before the Cup final if it was brought forward, as that was the weekend when it was scheduled to be, and not after, as is what's going to happen. For example, also, the FA Cup semi-final, the Burnley away game, was brought forward. Could that midweek, when they did play Burnley, have been when the Palace game went instead, though? Well, maybe, but there would have been another issue there. That's because Burnley's game with Arsenal in the final midweek has to be on Monday the 18th of May. All teams have to play on a Monday or a Friday at least once a season, and Arsenal haven't done it yet. And because of the FA Premier League agreement, they can't play on Friday the 15th. So that would still leave City having to play Bournemouth after the Cup final, because the Burnley game, which would be an extra after the Palace game had been played where the Burnley game was played, would still be left over. And to complicate this even further, 3 clubs have complained about City trying to benefit from this. They argued that City would finish with 2 home games by playing Palace in that final midweek, and that would be an unfair advantage. That has happened before for City though, but not since 2014. That's when they played Villa and West Ham in the final midweek and final game of the season. And just to finish, it's been known that the Palace game needed to move since the 4th of February. That's when City qualified for the League Cup final, and that was 3 months ago. There we go. I hope that has cleared everything up for everyone. Sarah, has this controversy around whether City can move the Bournemouth game to this day and whether they can play Palace in the final midweek and all of this sort of stuff, does it surprise you at this stage that the reaction to it is, oh, City trying to get an advantage, look at them, cheat?
God, no. And it had happened the other way. I mean, this is not an anti-City sentiment. This is a sort of anti-anybody trying to get an edge sentiment. I think this. If Arsenal had done the same, we would have the same thing. It's just kind of a bit of... It's all a bit silly, isn't it? Because, I mean, of course they've cheekily asked to change the order because they wanted to end with 2 home games. Who wouldn't? And they probably knew they were going to get turned down. But just the matter of asking is the kind of the funny thing, isn't it? But at the end of the day, they still got to play the same clubs, same places, and I still think the City will do this.
I think in the other side of this, Higgy, is that people get upset at City trying to move that Bournemouth game to before the Cup final. They also offered the Premier League to play it on the Thursday after the Cup final, just to give them some more extra time to rest and travel home and from Wembley, travel down to Bournemouth. Like, it's not just City trying to get an unfair advantage with 2 home games to finish. They are actually trying to explore options to make this a suitable arrangement, aren't they?
Yeah, but I don't think it's any massive surprise that the Premier League aren't bending over backwards to accommodate our wishes. Really, is there's a couple of ongoing things that might point towards them not being
A few disagreements between the two parties is what you're suggesting, yeah.
Sorry, who's on the phone? Oh, it's City, is it? What do they want? Oh, really? I'm just going into the garden. So they'll have to wait. Yeah.
Yeah. That said, it's 3 games in 7 days, Higgy. It's just kind of like Sarah says, it's just you just have to kind of get on with it, don't you? Previous City teams have done it, so why not this one?
Yeah, and for all the stress and consternation caused by the swapping around and rotation of players on the Southampton game, there's players there with minutes in their legs. We should have enough people to be able to step up and get through. Pep's blinder that he played in that respect could serve us very well. And yeah, the entire season I was not expecting us to do the league, and now I'm just like, this is how are we even with a shout here is absolutely ridiculous. And Arsenal must be thinking the same thing. They've not killed us. We're still there, and yeah, I think we're going to do it.
Well, we'll come back to that in a second, because let's first get a view from Merseyside. I've been speaking to Matt Jones from the Blue Room to find out about Everton's season so far and how they're feeling going into the home straight.
I think Everton this season and where sort of the fan base are at is just very indicative of the mindset of the modern day football fan, where I sort of look at the league table at the moment and try and judge which teams will be happy and which set of supporters will be happy. And you've got a team that have been top of the league for most of the season who have got a set of fans who are probably not happy. And you go all the way down the league, and there's maybe 2 or 3, maybe City are in this bracket at the moment because you're enjoying the chase and enjoying the style of football. But I think if you took Evertonians back 2 or 3 years when they were in the midst of those, really rough couple of relegations where they had to win on the last day to stay up, where they came back against Palace, I think one of the things that we'd say in the pub or on these podcasts is, God, we just love a season of mid-table mediocrity. And I think it's one thing saying that when you're in the midst of a relegation battle, and it's another thing actually living it. And I think what's happened this season is not just the Everton in mid-table, it's just that they've been tantalisingly close to being within touch of the Champions League places. They've been in and around the European places for a while, and I think people are looking at it now and thinking that maybe while this squad is not ready for a European push yet and are probably overperforming a little bit, it is tantalising. It is there to go and get, and when the pressure's kind of bit in the last few weeks, they've not quite been able to seize that opportunity. So this is a thing that there is a lot of perspective around, and people appreciate where Everton were a few years ago, and that David Moyes has come in and done a really good job. But as fans in the Monday, I feel like we're all wanting a bit more, aren't we? And we're all never quite fully happy and true to form. That's kind of where Evertonians are at the minute.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the European side of things as well, because you look at the positions in the table, only actually 2 points off a Conference League spot and 3 points off the Europa League spot. But that jump is 11th to 6th. There's a lot of teams in that mix. How are you feeling about it all? Because obviously at this stage you probably need a lot of results to go in your favour to get there.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been sort of wrestling with this over the last few weeks, and it's one of those where you look at it and, from the opposite point of view, when Everton were 7th or 8th a few weeks ago, I was sort of thinking the same. It's going to be hard for a lot of teams to come back and kind of overhaul us. So we're looking quite good here, but I think it happens really, really quickly. It sort of caught me by surprise a little bit, and I think the thing now Everton are chasing and they're in 11th and they're going into these last few weeks that I'm sort of looking at is that there are a lot of teams there, but they have got to play each other. They can't all win, and because there's just so many teams, this kind of mid-table maelstrom at the moment, you're looking at it and thinking, oh God, there's a lot of teams to get past, but just because of the very nature of how many there are, they have got to play each other, and therefore someone's got to drop points somewhere. So I think if Everton are going to get there, they're not going to go on a run of 3 wins and 1 draw in the last 4. That's just not going to happen. It's not really been true to the form of the season. And I think maybe any team in that race, it doesn't feel like anyone's going to win the last 4 games and get into a European place. The season so far in that part of the table, it's just been a grind. It's been getting 5 points every 3 games and just trying to build and scrap and fight your way into a position. And it doesn't feel like anyone's going to really gallop over the finish line. It feels like they're going to have to scrap and battle. And Everton are going to have to finish stronger than most. On Monday's obviously a really tough game for us, but I think they'll be looking at it thinking if they can get 7 points from the last 3, we've got Palace away, Sunderland at home, and Spurs away in the last 3. So there are games Everton should be getting points from, and I think if they get 7 from the last 3, they might just sneak in.
How have performances been lately? Because I mean, I didn't see the game against Liverpool, but I mean, it did sound a little bit like you were robbed of any sort of result in that one. And then recently lost at West Ham, who are fighting for their lives. So I don't know. I don't know if we can it's 2 defeats in the last 2, but I don't know if we can read a lot into the results more than the performances. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've been disappointed in the last 2, to be honest. I think Brentford away before that they weren't quite at it, but they came back twice, got a point with a late goal, and you go to a rival, you score a late goal to equalise, you're coming away pretty happy with that. And in the Liverpool game, Everton just didn't really assert themselves at all. I think that disallowed Njai goal, and then Liverpool scoring straight after kind of took them a while to recover from in the game, really. In the second half, they have a bit of a go, they score, but then never really push on. Liverpool got a fair choice keeper in goal, and he doesn't have anything to do at all. It's all the hallmarks of a derby loss for Everton, including obviously the last second goal they conceded as well. So yeah, frustrating. And then I think Saturday was the worst he played for a while, actually, against West Ham. Despite it being a game which has had a lot on it for both sides, there was a bit of an end of season feeling about it. Like, I remember going down to the London Stadium. I don't know if it's just the London Stadium creates this kind of atmosphere, but I remember going down there a long time ago when it was Sam Allardyce's last game as our manager, and Moyes was at West Ham, and it was very much an end of the season game with nothing to play for, and it just felt a bit like that, really. So a bit concerned at the kind of lack of the intensity, but I think if you look at Everton this season, they've used the fewest amount of subs in the league, they've used the fewest amount of players in the league, they've had the fewest amount of goal contributions from subs this season, I think, apart from City, weirdly, which I couldn't quite believe. So Moyes has kind of relied on a bit of a core group, and while we've not had European football to contend with, it sort of feels like maybe that core group is getting a little bit frayed now, and some of the players that, like Tarkowski, like McNeil, like Jacob O'Brien, who's been playing that position all season again at right back, like they're just starting to show the wear and tear, I think, of a tough season.
Yeah, who is playing well at the minute, as you say that about the squad? Because I think there's a lot of City fans who will look at this game going away to Everton on the Monday night, when Arsenal at the top of the table will have played again before City get the chance to respond, and they'll look at it and think this could be a tough one. If it is going to be a tough one, who's going to do it?
Just before we talk about that, do you not feel like we have this exact game every single season?
Yeah.
City are challenging for the title, and everyone says, going to Everton, really tough game for City. Like, I heard Gary Neville talking about it on something this week, and he was sort of saying, City haven't got a good record at Everton. I was like, they have. They've won the last 8 in a row in the league. I
think it's a hangover from the mid-noughties. When you used to beat us 2-1 and Tim Cahill would score every single time. That's what we all still feel.
Yeah, but there's this sort of sensation around this game that it's always tough for City, but it's really not been for a long time now. But from our point of view, I think Dewsbury Hall has been our standout man recently. I think over the course of the season, James Garner's probably been our best player. He's really stepped up and developed in a lot of ways over the course of the year. And looks like he's going to be in the England squad for the summer. But the last few weeks, it's sort of been Dewsbury Hall driving us on when Garner's form has dipped a little bit. He's sort of playing as a number 10 off the centre forward, and like I think when we signed him, I didn't really know much about him, and I think the fact he'd come from Chelsea, like just the fact that he's called Keenan Dewsbury Hall, I thought we were going to get like a player who's quite flashy and not really totally aligned with Evertonian culture and the way in which we sort of are as a fan base. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, the lad is a grafter. He scraps, he tackles, he runs his bollocks off every single week, and I think what he's got as well, which has sort of elevated our team a lot, is that quality. I think I'm right in saying he's, apart from maybe Semenyo in the league, he's outperformed his XG by any other player. Who scored 5 goals, so he's really good finisher. His left foot's fantastic, gets into great positions, and speaks really well as well. I think I don't know if you saw him on Monday Night Football, in the build up to the game on Monday, obviously, but really thoughtful about the game, really articulate. But I think when we've had games this season, and Saturday was one where I think you want a player to come out and just say, that wasn't good enough, we need to do better, we're going to work harder at that. He can do that side of it as well. So he's been a really good signing for 25 million, and I think he's on 8 goals now for the season. So if you can get up to 10 before the end of the season, that'd be massive for us, because we haven't had many midfielders down the years, probably since KL left, really, that have chipped in with that many goals over the course of a season.
Yeah. Now, we can't avoid the news this week as well that we've seen pictures of Jack Grealish, let's say worse for wear, out and about while in his rehab. How's his season been from your point of view? Because I remember doing that podcast with you at the start of the year about, his ability's not in question. It's his off the pitch issues that could come back to dog him, and here we are again.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fully embraced by Everton, I think, in general. He's, obviously early in the season, he hit the ground running and was sensational, wasn't he, for about 4 or 5 games? And he got 2 assists in about 2 of his first 3 games, something like that. And it looked like he had the spark back. And I think, as he played more games and the wear and tear of the season starts to catch up with him, maybe going into the Christmas period, he did drop off a little bit. But I think, again, like I was worried we were going to get a player that didn't really apply himself at times. It was a bit of a luxury, but I don't think Jack is that. I think he works when he's on the pitch and he's playing for you. He works hard and he gets stuck in, and you can see it means a lot to him. He got a stupid red card as well for that clapping the referee against Wolves, which set him back a little bit. But I think the frustrating thing was that he was just seemed to be coming into a bit of form again before he got that injury. He got 2 assists in a game we lost against Brentford at home, but he was our standout player that day. We went to Villa and won 1-0, and he played really well that day. And that's where he got the injury. And it's ruled him out for the rest of the season. And yeah, the stuff around the off-the-pitch stuff is obviously something we're still kind of getting used to as a fan base. I'm sure you guys have been through it loads, sort of weighing up does it matter? Is this important if he's performing on the pitch and all that kind of stuff? But everyone's sort of left to the defence of the lad. Obviously, I think it looks like he's going to sign. Like I think it'd be weird for him to stay at Everton and do his rehab between January and the end of the season if he wasn't going to sign. But the way in which the club have kind of leapt to his defence, one of Everton's PR chiefs was putting stuff out yesterday, obviously in regards to all the stuff he did around the Special Olympics and renewed his agreement with that. But he's been taken in as a sort of one of our own, and I think that the reaction to that story in the newspaper I won't even mention, has sort of solidified his probably place amongst Evertonians more than anything. As a player, I think if Everton sign him in the summer, I'll be interested to see what kind of fee and what kind of wages he's going to be on, because it's not the Jack Grealish we saw 3 or 4 years ago. There are obviously things you've got to take into account, but I don't think there'd be many Evertonians who'd be disappointed if he made the stay permanent, because he adds something completely different to what we've got. I mentioned Dewsbury Hall there, and it's that work ethic mixed in with that quality. We've had players down the years who've got the work ethic and not much quality, but those two just sort of elevated our play a lot in the early weeks of the season. So yeah, I'll be made up if he signed. Obviously, if it's on decent terms from an Everton point of view. And yeah, the way in which the club have leapt to his defence and the way in which he stuck around after his injury, it feels like that's going to happen at some point in the summer, I'd imagine.
Before we get to that, then it's the game on Monday night. How do you think it's going to go? What's your score prediction for the charity bet?
I really do worry about this one. Like I'm not going to be like, I don't want to be crying at him, but like obviously our record in this fixture is bad as it is, and like I just look at the way in which the City team has kind of evolved this season and the front four you've got now, and the way in which Everton's defending recently, and I fear for like. I think O'Brien's done pretty well as a right back in the main, and you look at him and think, big tall guy, you should be able to get round him if you're fast or skillful, and he deals with wingers pretty well. But the one he's always had issues with is Doku. I think Doku came on in the game last season. At Goodison and walked past him a few times. I think in the game at the Etihad this season, it was a similar story. So I'm a little bit fearful that the players you've got in the final third are a bad matchup for our defenders, and the defence has been creaking recently. Jordan Pickford's not quite been at his best recently either. So I think I'll take a point. If you offer me now, definitely. And I think whenever I do these pods, I always convince myself by the end of the chat that we're going to get a draw. I think I always say 1-1 for the bet, but seeing as it's for charity this week, I'm not going to do that. I think it'll be tough for Everton on Monday, and I think City will win 3-1.
You see stats pop up all the time about clubs and players, and you want to know that exact thing about City. There's an answer. statscity.co.uk. Want to find out all of the players who played alongside club legends like David Silva, Sergio Aguero or Vincent Kompany? Or maybe you'd like to know which team found it hardest to score past Joe Hart? You can find out City's record in every competition, at every stadium, and under every manager. Just go to statscity.co.uk and browse away. That's statscity.co.uk. The Blue Moon Podcast. If City won't let you down on the pitch, let us let you down off it instead.
That was Matt Jones from the Blue Room. I was going to say, Sarah, they had a rotated team in the final. They've all had 3 days off where they've been able to go abroad and get some rest. It's been over a week since that game against Southampton. This is just all favourable conditions for City now. As Higgy said before, it's like you couldn't ask for a better way to go into this game, could you?
We've had a lot of players almost 2 weeks off, really. A lot of those first teamers have had, since that Burnley game, which was hardly, the sort of toil that it could have been. That's almost 2 weeks off for a lot of those players. I think obviously the problem is further down the line, but I think they'd rather be in this position in terms of the league games than Arsenal's that have got to play and then play Atletico again. Obviously, that's in a really tight place. They can't afford to rest any players for that Atletico game. And this Fulham game, which is really tricky, being in the middle of those two games, you'd rather be in City's position and have that run, towards this Everton game. I really don't think this Everton game is the issue here. I think I'd be astonished if City don't make pretty light work of Everton on Monday.
Is it the Bournemouth one that we should worry about? Do you think from the outside, or is it?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely Bournemouth. Yeah, absolutely Bournemouth. Bournemouth probably the stats tell you that one of the informed teams in the league. Again, going for Europe, which would be, astonishing achievement for Bournemouth. Iriola's last few weeks, it's all coming towards that being a bit of a blockbuster end for Bournemouth. Who are one of the streakiest teams in the Premier League. There are points in the season when you really want to play Bournemouth because they've lost 3 or 4 in a row. This is not one of those times do you want to play Bournemouth. That really is the biggest issue, I think, this Everton game. Although, like you say, traditionally you look at it and think, oh, tricky. It's not the ooh tricky. I think the Bournemouth is the ooh tricky one.
Higgy, Burnley and Southampton games, the one thing you could criticise City for was creating a lot but not finishing the chances. Is that just a little tweak? Get that right and that's it. You feel a lot more comfortable for this running.
The thing is with this running, one slip up and you feel like it's all over, because if the other team doesn't slip up, you're kind of done. So it's just all or nothing, isn't it? I can't really. I'm looking at the fixture list. Palace, Brentford, Bournemouth, they're all Villa. They're all. Even we're kind of dismissing Everton. It is always tricky. They're all very, very tricky games. Arsenal have got an even kind of more physically taxing situation, but I don't know. I'm just getting really nervous and clawing at my own face looking at the fixture list. I've forgotten.
You're doing that thing. Yeah, you're doing that thing of looking at the other team's fixtures and going, they do have a busier schedule, but their games are easier. And it all Arsenal fans will want City's fixtures. All City fans will want Arsenal's fixtures, and everybody just hates themselves for the final few weeks of the season. That's what it's like being a football fan, watching your team go for these major honours.
I'd say I wouldn't want to be going to West Ham at the moment, and I think for Arsenal that's a really tricky one. Obviously, the home game against Burnley, you're not expecting them to drop any points there.
New manager bounce, that'll do it.
The no manager bounce.
Charity bet time then. We had no correct scores on the last show, so we stay on £705 for the season so far. William Hill has given us 3 £10 correct score singles. The winnings are going to the Man City Fans Food Bank Support Group, and it is Everton on Monday night. Higgy, we'll start with you. What have you gone for?
I've gone for Everton 1, Manchester City 2.
Excellent. I was trying. Who used to read the classified results?
James Alexander-Gordon.
James Alexander. Yeah.
And he used to say Wolverhampton Wanderers. He used to get one syllable out of Wanderers. It was great.
Yeah. Well, great impression anyway. 6-1 and £60 if you're right. Sarah, what you having?
2-0.
2-0.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. City is 13-2, 65 quid if you're right. And we heard earlier on that Matt Jones has gone for a 3-1 City win. That is 10-1 and £100 if he is right. You've got to be 18 or over to gamble. Prices can change. And for information on responsible gambling, take a look at gambleaware.org. We will finish with some listener questions. You know the ways to get in touch now. I've said it enough times in this week's show about stupid stuff. So get some serious questions sent in. We might do them as well. At bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky is the way to do it on there. You can email contact@bluemoonpodcast.com as well. And we're all over Instagram, so just search for us, Blue Moon Podcast, on there. John has been in touch on the emails to say, now that we know that John Stones and Bernardo Silva are both going, and I suspect Nathan Ake will too, the City squad will look very different next season. Are there any others that you think will go in the summer? I've heard chats around Marmoush and Nico G, both personally I would keep, and Savinho, who I'd be glad to see go. And I wonder, Higgy, if this all depends on whether this is Guardiola's final season or not. Because if it is Guardiola's final season, maybe a massive squad overhaul is on the horizon as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to plan. If the club don't know if he's staying, if he doesn't know if he's staying, then it's hard to plan for a new manager coming in and what players he might want, or are we just a kind of, director of football situation where you just get what you're given. Managers want certain players, don't they? I don't know. It's hard. Ake's what, 31, 32? He probably will go. Gvardiol's coming back in. I mean,
they're kind of set at centre back, aren't they? Because they're going to lose. They'll lose Stones, probably Ake as well. But they've got Guehi, Kusanov, Diaz, and Gvardiol there, so they're set there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, as cruel as it might sound, I just don't want to see Savinho at the club next season. No hard feelings, just not worked out, mate.
It did sound quite cruel, actually.
Yeah. Well,
I just don't want to see his face again.
Yeah.
No, shirt.
I could tell from Sarah's face there that she didn't know which way you were going to go there.
No,
and as soon as you said, I don't want to see, I knew exactly which way it was going to go. So, yeah. Sarah, in terms of squad building, on the other side of it, if Guardiola does leave, would it be beneficial for City to keep as many players around as they can? Because let's say, Bernardo's going, John Stones is going. If Guardiola goes, and there's been rumours about Rodri moving on to Real Madrid as well. If all of that happens in one summer, that's a massive, massive hole to fill.
It is, and I think a lot of it does depend on Pep, because I think Pep is kind of the man who's always said, anyone can go if the money comes in, and he's never stopped anybody leaving. So he would probably be the one who would take a Rodri move if Real Madrid came in with massive, massive money, because he's always said that, hasn't he? If the money comes in, everyone's got a price, you can go. Does him leaving change that, and do they kind of hang on to people? I don't know. We've talked about you taking over, David, so it depends on whether you...
What am I going to do?
What are you going to do? That's the big question.
If this is Football Manager, I delegate that to other people, so yeah.
And the interesting thing about just to go back to the Pep thing for a minute, is all I keep thinking is if City do win it, I think there's a far greater chance he goes. I think that's to walk out on that, on a domestic travel, having won the title out of nowhere, that's the point where you go, isn't it? There's no point sort of trundling on another season.
He's just cultivated a fresh young team. It's going to be so good, guys, when he signs a new contract.
Have we just got to pretend this to stop you just sobbing? But yeah, I'd agree. When you said Savinho before, I'd actually sort of did a little take, because I'd actually, again, forgotten he existed. So
Wish I
it's a
could.
Funny one. Yeah. I think his days are very much numbered. I don't think you can do all the names that are linked with the City leaving this summer, you're not going to do that in one summer. You're not going to lose Reinders, you're not going to lose Nico, you're not going to lose Savinho and all those centre halves. I think there'll be one or two. There has to be one or two. I think that Pep if it is Pep very famously doesn't want a massive squad. I think he has ended up with a squad that's probably bigger than he's comfortable with. Because they did that, the January moves for Gueye and Semenyo, that probably took them where he didn't. He wasn't expecting to bring in 2 first-team players in January, and that probably has taken him above the number he kind of comfortably wants to deal with. So I think there will be a bit of a sort of leaking from that squad. Obviously, Stones and Ake, yes. I think Ake, he's going to be great at an Everton or somewhere. To his last 2 or 3 years, because he is still a good player. He's probably just not City standard right now. Yeah, but every year there seems to be losing a legend, doesn't there? And when does that end? It's quite sad, isn't it? The last days of Bernardo.
At some point, you'll run out of legends, and it's a credit to City that they keep making them in the interim. That is it for this episode of the Blue Moon podcast. Thank you very much to my guests for this one, Chris Higginbottom.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Sarah Winterburn.
He's so polite, isn't he? Thanks, David.
Sometimes I am.
Sometimes he is. There is a clip of this week's Nostalgia episode coming up shortly. That was City fan Matt Holland inducting Sun Jihai into the Cult Hero Hall of Fame. If you want to hear the full thing now, just head on over to members.bluemoonpodcast.com. I'll be back next week after the trip to Everton, so see you then.
That was the Blue Moon podcast. Please give the show a rating and a review where you can. And don't forget, you can listen without the ads by signing up to our Patreon. You'll also get an extra episode each Monday. Here's a clip of this week's.
City's only real hope of any sort of success that season was the FA Cup. They drew West Ham at home. West Ham go 1-0 up, and then Sun Jihai gets sent off for the most innocuous thing I've ever seen. Have you seen it back? Do you remember any sort of anger towards him with this?
No, I don't seem to. I think this is part of my kind of... It's in the recess of my mind somewhere, and maybe if I'd have seen him sent off, I might have changed my mind about him being a hero for the club. But no, I don't seem to remember it.
Because in my mind, the anger was towards Howard Webb, and then I watched it the other night, and basically what happens is the West Ham lad is running with Sun Jihai towards a loose ball towards the sideline, and the West Ham lad pulls Sun Jihai off the pitch, and Sun Jihai just kind of turns and lets himself get thrown towards the advertising boards. And Howard Webb has interpreted that as him swinging an arm at the West Ham lad's head.
And it's hilarious as well, because that's at a time where I would say that a lot of people consider that those kind of challenges or things like that would go unseen.
Yeah.
But in fact, he actually got a red card and was sent off.
You can listen to more of that at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast. And join us again next time for another episode.